and you disrespected such a saintly person like Brihaspati, and the Asuras have worshipped their Guru Shukracharya, they gain great power. They're so powerful they can also defeat me. And you will not be able to reason with them. You'll not be able to threaten them. You'll not be able to offer some gift to pacify. You'll not be able to punish them. So Deva says, like, oh, we're finished then. There's no solution. Then Lord Brahma gives some pacification. No. For those who worship cows, Brahmanas, and the Lord, everything's all right. Don't worry. So then he advises them to go seek the shelter of Vishwarupa, the son of Twashta. He can become your priest. He can teach you some mantra by which you can gain power, and went back to Swargaloka, defeated the Asuras. So now we're in a section where the Devatas, they go to Vishwarupa. So we'll read the section to the end of the chapter. Chapter will be complete. Okay. Hope you can see that. So when all the demigods, this is verse 34, continuing. 6:7:34. When all the demigods requested the great Vishwarupa to be their priest, Vishwarupa, who was advanced in austerities, was very pleased. He replied to them, oops, I think I went a little bit far, sorry. Yeah, I don't know how I thought it was scrolled down, my bad. Okay, so that probably done. We're on verse number 26, okay. So Srila Shukadeva Goswami continue. Thus advised by Lord Brahma and relieved of their anxiety, all the demigods went to the sage Vishwarupa, the son of Twashta. My dear king, they embraced him and spoke as follows. The demigods said, beloved Vishwarupa, may there be all good fortune for you. We, the demigods, have come to your ashram as your guest. Please try to fulfill our desires according to the time, since we are on the level of your parents. O Brahmana, the highest duty of a son, even though he has sons of his own, is to serve his parents. And what to speak of a son who is a brahmachari? The acharya, the spiritual master, who teaches all the Vedic knowledge and gives initiation by offering the sacred thread, is a personification of the Vedas. Similarly, a father personifies Lord Brahma, a brother, King Indra, a mother, the planet Earth, and a sister, Mercy. A guest personifies religious principles, and invited guest personifies the demigod Agni, and all living entities personify Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you should honor our request, because we personify Lord Vishnu. So they're making some case for why he should honor their request. So Vishwarupa says, all right, stop all the arguments. What do you want? So next verse. Dear son, we have been defeated by our enemies, and therefore we are very much aggrieved. Please mercifully fulfill our desires by relieving our distress through the strength of your austerities. Please fulfill our prayers. Since you are completely aware of the Supreme Brahman, you are a perfect Brahmana, and therefore you are the spiritual master of all orders of life. We accept you as our spiritual master and director, so that by the power of your austerity, we may easily defeat the enemies who have conquered us. So they've made the request, please become our guru. Guru here means priest, and not spiritual master in the sense that we normally take spiritual master. Not a guru like that who teaching, siddhanta and tattva and all.
Performance, sacrifice.
Yeah, they want to receive some mantra, do some Vedic rite by which, and some mantra by which they can receive power to win back, to defeat the Asuras. So Prabhupada is saying spiritual master here, not guru like we think of it, guru padashraya and receiving diksha, and not that sort of guru. It means a priest here, a Brahminical priest, basically. You become the priest, do some yajna, become the priest. And you are a high level Brahmana, so you can do this. So to that, Vishwarupa may say, but you are much older than me. So in culture, it is not considered appropriate for someone younger to take a superior position to someone older. Even like in the third canto Bhagavatam, we heard this when, what was it? Uddhava and Vidura meet in Vrindavan after Krishna disappears, and Vidura is on pilgrimage, and he goes to pilgrimage in Vrindavan, and there he meets Uddhava. So Uddhava, very confidential associate with Supreme Lord. He heard Uddhava Gita. So Vidura wanted to learn from Uddhava, but just nearby, Maitreya Rishi was there. Just nearby. He wasn't even in the air, like in the proximity, but he was in the area. And Uddhava knew that. So Uddhava told Vidura, you go to Maitreya Muni, because he's my superior. He's a direct associate of Vyasadeva, like equal. So you go and learn from him. It would be inappropriate for me to teach you when such a superior is nearby. So there's like the culture is like this. So Vishwarupa being a cultured Brahmin. So how can I take the position of the priest? It's a position of the superior to you. So he may refuse on that basis. So the devatas, they replied, no, you can't refuse on this basis. So they give reply here. Do not fear criticism for being younger than us. Such etiquette does not apply in regard to Vedic mantras. Except in relationship to Vedic mantras, seniority is determined by age, but one may offer respectful obeisances even to a younger person who is advanced in chanting Vedic mantras. Therefore, although you are junior in relationship to us, you may become our priest without hesitation. So only in the case of knowledge can this cultural thing be shifted. So you see Shukadeva Goswami is 16 years old, and Narada and Vyasa are both hearing from him, the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in the case of knowledge, there can be this shift of roles, but not in any other case, apparently. So this is the culture. So the devatas inform, no, you can be our priest because you have superior knowledge to us, because you study Vedas, whereas we enjoy. We're enjoying this. You're studying Vedas, you have so much knowledge, you can be our superior in this regard. There is no transgression here. Okay, so Shukadeva Goswami says, when all the demigods requested the great Vishwarupa to be their priest, Vishwarupa, who was advanced in austerities, was very pleased. He replied to them as follows. Verse 35, Sri Vishwarupa said, O demigods, although the acceptance of priesthood is described as causing the loss of previously acquired Brahminical power, how can someone like me refuse to accept your personal request? You are all exalted commanders of the entire universe. I am your disciple. I must take many lessons from you. Therefore, I cannot refuse you. I must agree for my own benefit. So Sri Vishwarupa brings up a point here that to accept the position of the priest for materialistic persons like the devatas, this will cause a loss of Brahminical tejas, Brahma tejas, power, and like Shakti. So Brahmana's life is characterized by tapasya. Tapasya means austerity. And tapas is transformed into tejas, like potency, influence, power. So here he's saying if you become the priest of materialistic persons, then you can lose your tejas that you acquire from doing so much austerity. So an example of this is Shukracharya. Shukracharya, he's the guru of the demons. We've heard about him already. He's a guru of the demons. So later on in the 8th canto, you hear he's Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj is a Mahajan. He's a great devotee, but he's also an Asura. So his guru is Shukracharya. So when the Lord appears as Brahman Dev, he asked for the 3 steps. Then Shukracharya immediately got an anxiety because he knew, no, this is Vishnu. In 2 steps, he will take everything. And then his thinking was, if he takes everything, then what will I get? Because he's getting payment from the Asuras, Bali Maharaj, the Asuras. They're maintaining him, paying, he's living nice life, comfortable life. So if you lose everything, then I lose. So then how can you have potency when you have dependence on matter like this? Then you lose your potency, your power, your influence is the point. So anyone becomes dependent on matter, then they cannot have real influence or Shakti, or they lose it progressively. So it's very dangerous for Brahmins especially to be dependent on anyone other than God, if they become dependent on anyone other than God, then immediately they lose their power. They cannot speak anything, for example. One of the main purposes of Brahmanas is to give guidance to Kshatriyas and to give guidance to the whole society. They have to speak the truth, and they have to speak the truth uncompromisingly. So if they're being maintained by anyone else other than God, then they will be compromised. So that's what you see happens in a lot of places. Even today, you see it happen everywhere. ISKCON also, you see it happen. Where people are dependent on the donation, that white envelope. You do a program. This is in India, at least. In Indian homes, you see this. That you do the program, and the Indians, they give the white envelope at the end. So everyone, all the preachers, they go to the Indian houses, they get that white envelope. When I was living in Chicago, there were devotees. They're devotees, but they were little crickets. Little cricket. I mean, they're devotees because they believe in Krishna. They accept Krishna. They chant a little bit also. But they were a little cricket, and they would have the saffron on. And they would do these programs. They would go to all the Indian places in Chicago, many of them, do the programs and collect money, and go to the program and get the white envelope. So, and when you're at the program, now you have to speak some unpalatable truth. Maybe it's come up in the context of the Bhagavatam, or maybe it's some unpalatable truth has to be told, but you want that white envelope. So there will be a conflict of interest. How can you speak the unpalatable truth and also get the white envelope with the money inside? So you will not speak the uncompromising truth. You will say something that is palatable, and then they give you the white envelope. And then you're happy and they're also happy. But the truth has not been served. Well, this will cause a loss of tejas. That's what he's saying. Brahman tejas is lost in this way. So Shrikacharya is a good example of this. He was complaining, no, don't give it to Brahman Dev. He's Vishnu, he'll cheat you. Why are you saying like that? This is not good advice. Why are you saying like that? You're supposed to be a Brahmana. A Brahmana means one who knows Brahman. Here, Brahman is come in the form of Brahman Dev. Why are you saying like this? Because I'll be the loser. That's what he's thinking. So he has too much dependence on the matter, basically. So Vishwarupa is telling this point also, that if I accept the position of priest to you people, that they are materialistic, they want something material, then I'm going to lose the Brahman tejas. All the acquired potency from the years and years of study and tapasya can be lost by serving materialistic men in this way. Still, I'll accept it because you're like my parents. You already said you're my superiors. So I will accept it. And I will, it's just a small thing you're asking me to do. Even if you ask me to do a big thing, I would accept. But this is a very small thing. So I'll accept it. So then the devatas may respond to this, that, well, you are a Brahmana, you have to maintain yourself also. And so what is the problem if you accept the position of a priest and you get payment for that? That way you can maintain yourself. What is the problem? How will you maintain yourself if you don't accept a position like this? That would be the question of the devatas. So in reply to that, Vishwarupa speaks. This is verse 36. All exalted governors of various planets, the true Brahmana, who has no material possessions, maintains himself by the profession of accepting Shilochana. In other words, he picks up grains left in the field and on the ground in the wholesale marketplace. By this means, household Brahmanas who actually abide by the principles of austerity and penance maintain themselves and their families and perform all necessary pious activities. A Brahmana who desires to achieve happiness by gaining wealth through professional priesthood must certainly have a very low mind. How should I accept such priesthood? He already said he will accept it. But the devas are putting a hypothetical question to him. What is the problem? You have to maintain yourself. So he says, what is the vritti of a Brahmana? So vritti means occupational duty. So I pulled up this verse that I recall from 7th Canto, chapter 11. Narada Muni is speaking about Varnashram Dharma. So there he speaks about the Varna system first. So he speaks about the duty of a Brahmin. First, he mentions the 6 major duties of a Brahmin is to learn Shastra and to teach it, to learn the deity worship and to teach it, like learn how to worship and to teach others worship, and to give and receive donations. So this is the occupational duty of a Brahmana. But then after that, Naramuni mentions alternative occupations for Brahmanas. So this verse is that I'm sharing now, because this word Shilochana was used by Vishwarupa. So this is why I pulled up this particular verse. So Naramuni mentions about these other vrittis of Brahmanas that should be there. So first he says here, Bharata. So he can take up the occupation of Vaishya. So Vaishya means cow protection, agriculture, and trade. So sometimes a Brahmana can accept that particular position. So it says Vichitra Shalina Yayavara. Or he can accept Shalina. Yeah, Shalina here means livelihood achieved without effort. So that means whatever comes by providential arrangement, then that's how he'll accept that. That is how he exists. Or Yayavara. Yayavara means he'll go to the field and beg for some it says the Prabhupada was here, beg for some paddy. What is paddy? Just, I don't know what is, you know what is paddy? Going to the field to beg for some paddy. I don't know.
Chapatis.
Hey, chapatis or something. Yeah, I never know what this paddy word is.
No, I'm not sure at all, but I would assume that the rice comes in something.
Oh, the rice comes in something.
In something.
Okay.
It means collecting the whole thing, but then they have to separate it.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
isn't that thing of beating
The husk, right? They call it the husk. Yeah. It's interesting. Anyway, so you go to some field and you beg. So that is an occupation. And then Shilochana. So this is the same word that Vishwarupa uses. So the word Shila, and it's a compound word, Shila Uchana. The word Shila means picking up food stuff that just falls in the field. So they're, harvesting, some farmers harvesting, and so much is left there. So the Brahmana may go and pick that up. That becomes his occupation. Or Uchana means the Brahmana is in the marketplace and so many things are falling here and there. That lives on that. So these 4 things, Vipravritti, Chaturdheya, Shayasi, Chaturutara. So these are the Vipravritti, the occupation of a Brahmin. These 4 things mentioned there. And it says each successive one is better than the previous one. So, maintaining as a Vaishya is like at the bottom of the list. Better than that is begging. Better than that is depending on providence. Better than that is just going beg in the field. Better than that is whatever falls in the field. And better than that is whatever falls in the marketplace. So, in this way, the Brahmin can maintain his tejas, because basically each successive vritti is kind of like an increased dependence on the Supreme Lord. This is a basic idea. They're depending on God. That way his consciousness is protected from deviating from the truth. But otherwise, if you show yourself dependent on others, then you have to deviate from the truth. Not only in your speech, but also in your lifestyle. So it'll gradually like grow on you, Just like first you may be accustomed to living like very simple, very austere life. Then you start to get a little bit more opulence. And you're like, yeah, I can get used to this. It like starts to just grow in the consciousness. And then as you become more and more engulfed in material opulence, then you become distant from the truth. Now, if you're a pure devotee, doesn't matter. Pure devotees, Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe Yukta Vairagya Muchite. They see the whole reality as paraphernalia for Krishna's pleasure. Everything is having sambandha with Krishna. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe. Everything is having its sambandha with Krishna. And they can see that Krishna Sambandha when they look at it. And therefore, Yukta Vairagya Muchite, they practice vairagya by engaging it in Krishna's service. That is their vairagya. But if you're not on that platform, that vision, when you walk around the environment, you do not see Krishna Sambandha, right? You just see an object. that's up for grabs. There's like, if you see some phone lying around here in the place, oh, I know this is the Shamsundari's phone. So I pick it up. She was looking for it. I pick it and give it to Shamsundari. That's Yuta Vairagya. Because I look at the phone and I see the Sambandha with Shamsundari. So I pick up the phone and give it to Shamsundari, right? But if I don't know that this phone has the relationship with Shamsundari, then I see the phone and it's up for grabs, or it can be anyone's phone. So why not be my phone? I'll go sell it at the marketplace, get some money for it. It has no sambandha with anyone, so why not sambandha with me? So that's how the conditioned souls, we look at the world and we do not see the Krishna sambandha. So it's everything's up for grabs and we try to enjoy it. And then as Prabhupada says, the more we exploit the material energy, the more we become entangled in our complexities. So that is our life, with just more and more entanglement. So the Brahmana, he doesn't see the Krishna sambandha. So he has a very kind of rigid lifestyle that protects him. He sees the Krishna sambandha, also Brahmana. I'm just speaking in terms of they're not like pure devotees. They're just like the standard of a Brahminical life. So they have this sort of lifestyle that protects them. It's a boundary that gives the protection. Like when Lakshmana put the boundary around Sita, he said, don't step outside. If you step outside, you'll be in trouble. But if you stay inside the Lakshmana Rekha, then you'll be protected. So then, he went off to go and help Ramchandra. Actually, he knew nothing was wrong with Ram, but Sati she was a little mean to him. She was a little mean. She said, go and help Ram. He said, nothing wrong with Ram. She said, oh, you want to enjoy me? So he never even looked at her face. So he always looked only at her feet, but she made some, she was a little mean. She said, you want to enjoy me? So he said, okay, you stay inside the Lakshmana Rekha, I'll go and help Ram. Then Ravana came, but he couldn't cross the Lakshmana Rekha. So as long as Sati was inside, then he couldn't do anything. So he made some trick, and then she steps outside, and he grabs her. Of course, he grabs his Maya. Sita is not really, because Sita is sort of Shakti, so he can't really grab. But as the pastime unfolds, he grabs her, because she stepped out. So the vritti of a Brahmana is like that Lakshmana Rekha. It gives protection. So it gives him protection, and it can be peaceful. I think it's the cases there. Chanaka Pandit. So Chanaka Pandit was a Brahmana. I don't think he was a devotee, but Prabhupada is very fond of quoting his Niti Shastra. He has a lot of cool sayings. It's just like Niti Shastra means like scriptures on morality. So Prabhupada is very fond of quoting many statements of Chanaka Pandit. So in his life, as far as I know, he was Brahmana. He was serving some king, but he lived in the forest. He didn't live in the palace. And even though king ready to give all facility to him, he lived in the forest because he said, in order for me to be uncompromising, I can't be showing myself having any dependence on God. I depend on God, depend on the great spirit running. So he lived in the forest. That way he could just speak plainly. He could just serve the truth. So that vritti becomes a Lakshmana Rekha. It just protects. So every one of us should have our vritti, and we stay inside the boundary of our vritti, we have some protection. So Vishwarupa is telling this thing that actually the Brahmanas, they should do shilochana. So that means whatever falls in the field, they take it, or whatever falls in the marketplace, they take it. And that's how they survive. And that way their lifestyle protects them from deviating from truth. So he said, this is how a Brahmana maintains himself. Because the Devas is putting hypothetical question there according to our commentators. How you will maintain yourself if the priests don't pay you, how you will maintain yourself? Whatever I pick up in the field, that's how Brahmanas maintain themselves. There's no problem. But it's okay, I will accept the priesthood anyway. Because then the Devas has become nervous. This guy, he will not accept. No, it's okay, I will accept. And so next verse, he says, all of you are my superiors. Therefore, although accepting priesthood is sometimes reproachable, I cannot refuse even a small request from you. I agree to be your priest. I shall fulfill your request by dedicating my life and possessions. So this is the end of the chapter. Last few verses here. So Sri Shrikadeva Goswami says, O king, after making this promise to the demigods, the exalted Vishwarupa, surrounded by the demigods, performed the necessary priestly activities with great enthusiasm and attention. The opulence of the demons, who are generally known as the enemies of the demigods, was protected by the talents and tactics of Shrikacharya. The Vishwarupa, who was most powerful, composed a protective prayer known as the Narayan Kavacha. By this intelligent mantra, he took away the opulence of the demons and gave it to Mahendra, the king of heaven. Vishwarupa, who was most liberal, spoke to King Indra the secret hymn that protected Indra and conquered the military power of the demons. And that's the end of the chapter. The next chapter, we'll hear about the Narayan Kavacha. Actually, I'll not read through that chapter. We'll just summarize it. It's a type of shield it is a type of armor that is put on by mantra. So you use mantra in different parts of the body, and it creates an armor for the body. And so this armor is taught to Indra. And so he invokes it, and then he goes and fights with the asuras, and they cannot stand before him because of that armor. So the chapter is just verses describing the armor, how to put it on. So we will just give a summary of that, and then we'll move on to chapter 9. I just want to make one final point here. This is not exactly the same point, but it's a kind of like a parallel point. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada's godbrother, Srila Sridhar Maharaj. He was once told, he apparently is a very shy person. So many devotees in the Mat, they were saying he should become guru. But he did not want to become guru because he said it's a little bit against his personality also, kind of a little bit of like reserved. Yeah, that's a good word. He was a little reserved, so he didn't want to do their service. And so the devotees were asking Srila Sridhar Maharaj, and this is in Sri Guru's grace, that how they can accept the position of guru is so dangerous to accept the position of guru. So how we can accept, I'll not accept. So then Srila Sridhar Maharaj was telling, I used to also think like that. He said, but then one day I was telling the story, you know the story where Krishna gets the headache. So Krishna gets the headache, and then he goes to the Narada Muni, said, how can I cure the headache? You have to take the dust of the feet of Vaishnavas. So first Narada Muni goes to the Vaikuntha Vasis, but they didn't mind giving the foot dust, but they were afraid to give offense to the Lord. So they said, we cannot give the foot dust, but they'll give offense to the Lord. Then he went to the Dwarka Vasis. They also didn't mind so much, but more than offense, they were afraid that by giving foot dust, we'll go to hell. They also don't mind going to hell, but then we'll be separated from Krishna. And we will not be able to tolerate that separation. So they also didn't agree. So then Narada Muni went to the gopis, and the gopis gave it immediately. So then Narada Muni said, don't you know you'll go to hell? You'll be separated from God. They said, we can tolerate if that will relieve our beloved's headache for even one moment, we can tolerate that. So then he said, wow, such exalted personalities. So then Srila Sridhar Maharaj said he was telling the story. And then he said that, then it occurred to me that if I accept the order to become guru, my guru is also given the order. If I accept the order that I'm prepared to go to hell for the service of my guru, with that mood, if you embrace the service, then you will be protected. That I'm prepared to go to hell to serve my guru's order. And he said, if you embrace the order in that way, then you will be protected. But if you want to be guru, just simply thinking, some other thing, not in service, but I'm qualified or whatever other sort of thought is coming, then you will be in a dangerous situation. So this is not exactly a perfect parallel here, but Vishwarupa is willing to take the risk. This is why this came to my mind. Even though he knows this can cause a little bit of a compromise in his Brahma Tejas, he's willing to take the risk in service to the cause of the devatas. So there's not a perfect parallel here, because what Srila Sridhar Maharaj is saying is a lot deeper than what we're hearing here. But it's reminding me, in the embrace of service, then you can take risk. Service requires risk taking also. And then this is one of the glories of all the Prabhupada disciples, the risk taking they did for the service of Srila Prabhupada. That's why it was so powerful and potent. When they were taking all sorts of, maybe some of them also had a little bit of the risk taking spirit. I mean, there's definitely that there for sure. But they also had genuine love for Prabhupada and for Prabhupada's seva they were doing. So you embrace if you're doing something that is risky, but you're doing it as seva to your guru for the higher purpose, then that also affords a deep protection and internal protection. But if you embrace something not in the spirit of seva, but for maintenance, like Prabhupada often speaks about people speaking the Bhagavatam for maintaining themselves. He's very heavy on this. You don't see so much in the States, but or the Western world, but you see a lot in India. Everywhere, the huge advertisement is there. And then if you go to the programs, they're like carnivals. They're very much like carnivals. They have like music and festivities and drama and this thing and that thing. They have like little booths selling this, that, and other. Yeah, they're kind of like festivals or carnivals. So Prabhupada would be a little heavy on that. People are just doing for getting the paycheck. And that white envelope I was selling, they do. And if you do like that, you'll be in danger. So that's just like a devotional point. It's not a perfect parallel what's going on here, but kind of a devotional point. So we'll stop there because that is the end of the chapter. It's already 7:50. Anyone wants to ask any question?
Yeah, I got a question, Prabhu. I was just thinking that on this last point, I actually had two questions. One, when you were talking about how the Brahmana's professions were, there's the different degrees are meant to basically show higher levels and lower levels of dependence on God. So I was just wondering if that same sort of theme applies to other professions as well, I suppose, but in what way? That was my first question. And my second question was, I feel like the definition of risk for the sake of service in ISKCON is so limited, right? It's, even as soon as you say the word, I think, oh, well, I'm not packing my bags and flying to a Muslim country or Ukraine to preach Krishna consciousness. I guess I'm not taking any risks in my service. Can you expand a little bit of what it means to take a risk in Krishna consciousness and service?
I don't know if I can. Okay, the first question. I don't know. Well, I would have to read it. So I didn't read the whole chapter.
Yeah.
So Narada Muni is talking about all the vrittis. So Varna, the Vipra vritti, the Kshatriya vritti, Vaishya vritti. So these vrittis require less direct dependence on God. They're more involved with the empirical world. So I don't know. I have to review the chapter, but I doubt. My intuition tells me that there isn't so much obligation on these other varnas to have that sort of kind of self-evident dependence on God. But because the Brahmanas have to give guidance to the whole society, and they have to guide the society according to the principles of truth, and they're supposed to do so uncompromisingly. So the only way you can be uncompromising is that you're not dependent on anyone else but God. He's the only shelter. Otherwise, you have to compromise. It's a fact. Just like, this is a little mean what I'm about to say. It's a little mean. It's not really mean. It's an observation, but it's kind of a little mean. I don't mean it in a mean way, though. But you see, like amongst preachers, I gave this example already, but I'm saying it again in a different way. You'll see amongst preachers that they will pander to the lowest common denominator because they have dependence on, like, let's say finances, for example. That's a very popular one. There's one reason why Rupa Goswami says that the wealth and followers are not an anga of bhakti. And then at the very end of the discussion on Vaidhi Bhakti, he's discussing what is not an anga of bhakti. So he says, Jnana is not an anga of bhakti, Vairagya is not an anga of bhakti. And he says, the good qualities, those are also not angas of bhakti. And he says, wealth and followers, those are also not angas of bhakti. So in the commentaries, it explains because devotees may have these like big projects. So then you become dependent on these huge overheads. So then you become dependent on, like, financially speaking. So as a result of that, you may pander because you need a little bit of help. So if you say something too uncompromised, it's a little bit jarring and hard for people to hear you. You don't sound like you love them also. So then it'd be a little difficult. That's just a prominent example. That's just an example. So my point is very simple. Is I think it's obvious that if you have shelter only in God, then you can be uncompromising in the truth, like a Jaya Swami. You can be completely uncompromising, no dependence except for on God. You know how that manifests, that's another story, practically how it manifests, but you just depend on the Lord. As soon as you lose that, then you have to compromise. You can say you're already compromised if you feel that your shelter is elsewhere, and then it will be increasingly so. So with the other varnas, because they're not giving the same type of guidance, of course, Kshatriyas also. So Kshatriyas are dependent on Brahmana counsel, right? And then Vaishyas and Shudras is less pressure on them if you're a Vaishya Shudra, but to speak of an outcast. But Brahmanas, they have the heaviest responsibility. So it makes sense to me, intuitively speaking. Well, I have to read the whole chapter to see, but it makes sense to me, intuitively speaking. That's why this thing is being told for them particularly. You live like this to protect the Brahman integrity and service to the truth. Now, I don't know about the risk-taking thing. Take risk. My point is not necessarily we should take risk. So that wasn't the point I was making. But the more point I was making is that often it may come out if you have to take a risk, then it should be a risk that is informed by the desire for service. Otherwise, people take a lot of risk for money, for example. I hear it all the time from devotees that they're prepared to like move to Antarctica for a job. Like quite literally. I was with one friend in New York and he was prepared to move to, I think it was Iceland, you know? And I was like, well, are there any devotees there? And he was like, no, but you know, I could get Sangha online, this, that, and the other. I was like, nah, homie, you're not even taking Sangha here in New York City. You're even taking it in Iceland. So, but he was prepared to move. Luckily, he got some job in New York, so he didn't have to go. But he was prepared to do it. So I was just like, that's taking a risk. You're risking your spiritual life. So for the material thing, people take risks. And so I'm saying to take risk in Christian consciousness. It should be informed by service, you know, service to gurus, service to the guru's mission, service for the pleasure of Krishna. Yeah. I'm also thinking about risk taking in terms of like our own spiritual practices. When I say risk taking means risking to go a little bit deeper. I feel that's a risk that devotees also resist because we get comfortable where we're at. It's called niyama agraha. Niyama agraha means basically you're attached to the domain of devotion that you're already at. It's very comfortable. You become acquainted with it. And so we don't want to risk to go deeper. And as a result of not risking to go deeper, we may lose attraction because, you know, it becomes like another status quo, a little hackneyed. So then what about risk taking to go deeper? So even for that, you have to have good guidance for that also. And then you risk based on service to higher instructions and so on like this. I would have to sit with the topic honestly a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks for those reflections. I really appreciate it. And as you were concluding your thoughts, I had this thought about how there's devotees who, for example, don't like going to India. You know, they don't like going to Braj because it's so austere and life in America is so comfortable. And so if we really think about it, there are so many risks we could be taking for our spiritual life, like going on parikrama, you know, in Braj. But yeah, anyway, so thanks a lot. Thanks for expanding that definition a little bit.
Looks like Mother Gell is here. Yeah, ask me a question.
Yeah, it's a question / comment, you know, on this risk-taking issue, you know, before the tail end of your exchange with Harisham Prabhu, I was going to suggest that maybe a good definition of risk-taking might be to simply go out of your comfort zone for service, you know, to a, you know, I mean, not go crazy with that, you know, to an extent that's manageable for you, you know, to just extend the bar a little bit, you know, that would be a risk for me.
That sounds like a very good definition. I'm definitely amenable to that. Thank you for sharing
Okay. Hare Krishna.
that. Ananta Vallabha Prabhu. Welcome.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for your class. I was wondering, we hear in the Bhagavad Gita about austerities of speech, and one of the aspects being it should not be agitating to the people you're speaking to. How does that come into this picture?
So I'm saying the Brahmana has to speak truth uncompromisingly. What Krishna says in austerity of speech is that it should not be agitating to others. So the truth, and Krishna also later says in Uddhava Gita, he said truth means the truth spoken pleasingly. That is what is meant by truth, which is interesting. That puts a very strong, you have to be pretty thoughtful if Krishna's putting that criteria. He said truth means truth that is spoken pleasingly. That is the meaning of truth. And it's chapter 19, Uddhava, because Uddhava asks what is truth. Truth is that was spoken pleasingly. So how does that factor in? Yeah, so the Brahmana has to be, it's such a person will have to be a deeply thoughtful individual. He cannot deviate from the truth on the one hand, but he cannot speak in such a way that the truth is misunderstood or people become averse to it. Then how is the truth served in that manner also? If everyone becomes averse to what you're saying, then how is the truth served? Also, as a general rule of thumb, because the definition of ignorance, right? What is the definition of ignorance? The accepting opposite. So you take that which is the non-self to be the self, that which is temporary to be eternal, that which is impure, ashuchi, to be pure, and that which is a cause of dukkha to be a cause of sukha. So these words are direct opposites of each other. Nitya, anitya, shuchi, ashuchi, sukha, dukkha, atman, anatman. So avidya means that you have a perception of reality that is exactly opposite to truth. That means that those of us situated in ignorance, that the truth will always be confronting, because our vision of reality is directly opposite the truth. So any truth, even if spoken as palatably as possible, will be confronting for us because our vision is situated opposite of that. Still, the person who has to represent the truth to others, he has to use his brain, how to make it digestible, right? Otherwise, they'll not hear. So the first verse we hear, in the second verse we hear, Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma projita kaitava traparamo nirmasaranam. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Atra, the Kaitava Dharma will be kicked out. That basically means they will criticize. That's what kicking out Kaitava Dharma in the Bhagavatam means. They're going to criticize. Again, yoga, this, that, and that. It gets criticized quite a bit, like a lot. Or to speak of bhukti. Then the next verse said, Nigama kalpataru galitam palam shukumukha damrita drava samyuta. That this Srimad Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit on the wish-fulfilling tree of Vedic knowledge. And it was spoken by Shuka. And because it was spoken by Shuka, it became Amrita. And Prabhupada, Shuka Mukha, Dhamita, what Shuka Mukha, Dhamita Driva Samhita, what is that? Prabhupada translates this phrase as semi-solid and soft, and therefore easy to digest. I always thought that was an interesting translation. Nigamakal Paturu Galitam Bala Shuka Mukha, Dhamita Driva Samhita. And this Amrita Dravya Samyutam. He translates as semi-solid and soft and therefore easy to digest. So first we hear Srimad Bhagavatam criticize a lot. But then, because it came from the mouth of Shukadeva Goswami, it became semi-solid and soft and therefore easy to digest. So that means a preacher who has to represent it. Because he wants the truth to be embraced. Not like when we're neophyte brahmacharis, and we like take the truth like a cudgel and just like, yeah, Prabhupada said, yeah, Bhagavad Gita said, yeah, going around like hitting everyone up. And then it's like, well, if you don't accept it, you're insincere. No, not like that. You have to use your brain because you want the truth to be embraced. What is the point if everyone keeps running away from the truth? You want it to be embraced. Like Mahaprabhu, So he's teaching, Krishna, 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 but people were not able to accept it. So he took sannyas. So they will respect him and they can open their ears or heart. He, thought how I can get people to embrace this Krishna. Otherwise, they'll commit offense and they'll be finished. So you have to think, how will the truth be embraced? If that is the objective of the speaker, but the truth is also confronting because people's vision is situated in ignorance, directly opposite the truth. So you have to be thoughtful. So that thoughtfulness is austere. You have to be austere. It's very easy to just say this is the truth. And like in ISKCON, devotees always speak very harshly. And then they say Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. That's who they always invoke, inevitably. I'm just representing the truth like Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. I've been hearing this for so many years, my whole KC. Okay, so no one likes you or no one likes Krishna also. Congratulations. If you consider that to be successful, then okay. So yeah, I can't say, like I said, even if you try to speak pleasingly, when people's vision is situated opposite, it will always be a little confronting. But there's a way to speak in such a way that people welcome that confrontation also. So that's what we have to figure out. Who is this English Oscar Wilde? He has this famous saying that when you speak the truth, you should make people laugh, otherwise they'll kill you. So that is one approach. A lot of our devotees in ISKCON especially, they try to be like entertaining. That way they can say things that people are happy to be confronted by. So they speak the truth, but they like take it, they digest it. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is to just love people to such a degree that you can say anything to them and they'll accept it. Another strategy. They fall in love with you basically. So I have that experience also. You show a certain amount of care to someone, they fall in love with you. And as a teacher also, then you say anything also heavy, they accept. Like you see Gaura Govinda Maharaj, it's amazing. His classes are so hilarious. He's chastising Mr. Peter or whoever he's chastising in class, they accept. They were so attached to Gaura Govinda Maharaj, they loved him. So you have to use your brain, how to make the truth embrace, even though it's unpalatable. So that way you're satisfying both being truthful and also being austere in your speech. Aishan says, I like David Madhava saying that preaching means to cultivate trust. Then at the right time, you can say the truth. And because they trust you, they'll follow. Yeah, that's a very nice thing. Okay, Maharaj, you have any thoughts on this? Down to that time, Maharaj said.
Some sadhu in Vrindavan, I asked him about Brahmana.
Yeah.
So he said a Brahmin has complete faith.
A Brahmin has complete faith.
A Kshatriya has less faith.
A Kshatriya has less faith.
He's not secure unless he has some territory.
He's not secure unless he has some territory.
A Vaishya has less faith because he's not secure unless he's allowed to cheat.
A Vaishya has less faith because he's not secure unless he's allowed to cheat.
And a Sudra has least faith because he's only secure if he has a master.
And a Shudra has least faith because he's only secure if he has a master. Wow, that's amazing. So
Yeah. The other point is I said the Bhagavatam speak with a global flair.
right,
So I think that's the point. When they become attached to money,
right,
then they have to speak to satisfy the audience.
right, exactly.
And they can't really.
Exactly. Yeah.
And with Prabhupada, he would say things that, don't sell.
Right. Exactly. Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah. When I first moved into Chicago, Srila Radha Govinda Maharaj was coming every year for several years. And he was doing Bhagavad Saptaha. He was speaking 7 days on some section of the Bhagavad. It was very popular. So many Indians, it would be in Hindi, so I couldn't participate. But so many people, Indians from all over would come for the Bhagavad Saptaha every year. Probably for the first 3 or 4 years I was there in Chicago. Then the fall, no fall thing came up in one of his classes. And then the GBC shut it down. He stopped coming after that. There was some little controversy that came up around that. And then after that year, he didn't come. Radha Govinda Maharaj, he's quite famous as the Bhagavad.
He said something that wasn't popular.
He said something he said something that was, I guess that wasn't the consensus of GBC or something. So they made, it's like, actually, to be honest, I ended up being the one telling about it because I didn't know, but the class was in Hindi, but one of my friends, he was going to all the Bhagavad Saptahas. So he was explaining one point. And I was like, hey, that's not what Prabhupada says. So I told Prabhupada Swami.
Oh my gosh.
This is like, I was innocent. I was a very new devotee. So I didn't know so I told Prabhupada Swami. And Prabhupada said, who is told this? So I gave him all the details that I knew. And then after that, Maharaj didn't come ever again. So I was literally a very new devotee. How was I supposed to know? I didn't even know this was like an issue or anything. I had no awareness at that time. So I hope I'm forgiven for that. But yeah, I was like, I feel like, anyway, some offense was done annoyingly. Okay, Hare Krishna. We'll stop here for today. Hare Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada.